Hey Dave.
Andre, how you doing?
Very good, very good. Just been quite busy in terms of my actual work, so yeah, had to skip last week because of it. But yeah, I don't want to keep skipping it, so I want to carry on with it. So we'll see how it goes. Definitely want to carry on with building this AKS module, and I think you are going to be doing some AI stuff on Thursday as well, right?
Yeah, I'll have to figure out what to do next. I think it'll be. I want to go back and revisit that AZD project and look at it in a little bit more detail and troubleshoot why it wasn't working for me. And you got it working, so I want to go into that a little
Yeah.
more.
Yeah, last week we were talking about like the AZD, and I managed to it worked for me in terms of the when I deployed it. So yeah,
Yeah, and I managed to break it, so yeah, I'll have to figure out how that works.
yeah. Did you try and fix it, or did you just not have enough time
I
there?
got. I started exploring and looking at it. I think it has something to do with the environment that I set up.
Mm.
It was still persisting and using the same environment instead of
Okay.
starting over from scratch. So with AZD, you have to initialize, you create a new environment, and then you're able to set a bunch of variables that persist, like environment variables that will stick with that environment.
Yeah.
So I think I just needed to start over with a brand new environment, and I can test that on Thursday.
Yeah. Uh, exactly. So yeah, we make hi making an animal. Yeah. How you doing?
Making an enemy? Oh, I like that
Animal.
name. Making an
Animal.
enemy.
An enemy. uh, Yeah, but yeah, this is what we're gonna be looking to do. So today I think we're gonna be focusing on the AKS stuff. So what we're gonna be doing is we're gonna be carrying on with the way we can actually modify the Azure Verified modules, to to meet our goal. So remember, our goal from last week was actually creating private AKS. So we have to edit a few more things to make sure that we do that. Necessary this module, it seems to create everything. So I want to look into a way of trying to extract, certain bits from it. Like so, you're talking about like virtual network that it's the AKS is going to be using, certain other elements, the shared elements. So let's see what we can do regarding that. So I'm going to share my screen and show you. We'll flip into this mode. I haven't touched it since last week, essentially, so it's still a bit on rough edges, but that's fine. That's what we're here for. That's what we're learning to do. So, it just people will. Whenever you're looking at any modules or anything new, it takes time. No matter how good you've been with it, it just like to understand it, it does take a few times. So let's go ahead and have a look at the actual module. So remember, we basically got the Azure Verified module for AKS downloaded to our repository. When using our main.tf and outputs and provider to just basically use, to just basically go ahead and deploy that our AKS cluster. Now, when we had the AKS cluster on the, as a resource and we deployed it, I think we deployed it to the Andre and Dave TF. And last time we stopped the AKS cluster to stop it consuming much resources. So what we're going to do is we're just going to start the AKS cluster service. Eventually, I'd like to get it to a state where we can get Terraform to make sure whether it's a start or stop. But of course, let's just one thing at a time. Where we're right now focusing on the API. So last time we went through and we asked ourselves what is needed for the API. We need a virtual network. We need the virtual network integration enabled on the AKS cluster. And we also just basically needed this API server address. So we saw a bit of things, right? Remember, we had a hub and a setup. I'll just give a quick recap. So if I look for AKS API, what is it? AKS. If I look for private AKS with VNet integration, this is essentially what we're doing. So we're going to be creating an Azure Kubernetes cluster with an API service. So in a sense, all we're doing is we're flipping one to the other. But I want to use a verified module for it. Right. So if we begin to work on the code, let's have a look at the code a little bit more. I haven't touched it since ages ago, so let's have a look. So I think as part of this virtual network, so as part of does create you a virtual network. So let me just see. I'm just going to have a look at one of the examples that we can have a look with where it has the network support. So if I had a name, I had a main, locals. As you can see in the example, we have the Azure virtual network. So it will be like a test. So let's just copy this block because we do need to define our virtual network here, right? We want to make sure that our virtual network is as a certain IP address space, because what we will also need to do is create some local subnets as well. So we would need to create like kind of a subnet of from this VNet address, because we would need to create a. I think I touched on this last time, but if you're having one cluster, /28 is okay. If you're having like two clusters, it'll probably be /27. That's okay. But if you have four clusters, /26, you're looking at. Maybe you can get away with 8 clusters. I don't remember exactly the numbers, but that's how it can transcend from the beginning. With me so far, Dave?
Yeah. So they have. So you're basically, instead of defining that in the module, you're defining it here in the call to the module, and you're going to have it refer to the network you create.
Exactly. So what we're just again, what I eventually would like to do is make this code a bit even modular within this, but that is something for later. For now, we're just going to be looking into creating just your basic resources and then going from there. The whole point is that you're meant to iterate and iterate and iterate on your code until it's humanly readable as possible. Until you get that, then it. So yeah, in a sense, what I'm going to look at is there's an Azure subnet test. Okay, great, but maybe I want another Azure subnet, and I want to call this my API, right? And in this API, I'm going to give it a 1052. I'll just use 1052. It's either or, to be honest. You can chop and change network IP addresses as much as you want. You can even get certain solutions to do this for you, like calculations and whatnot. But we are still very early days, so let's just create something. So I mentioned before that we want to maybe have a 28 because we're going to have just one cluster at the moment. If we wanted to maybe deploy another cluster, all we can do is just do that and, paste it again. And then there you go. It's another cluster. Again, you can do for each loops on this and this, but we'll set that up later. Right now, it's just a matter of setting up the AKS module, a certain virtual network that I wanted to use. And let me see. So if I just quickly just go again to the main. And this is how I want to show you guys how you can, Microsoft do provide certain ways you can actually configure by having examples. So you could use those examples and then look to build out from there. Literally, all you need to do is copy one of these examples into your structure. What I'm doing is I'm mainly trying to build it for myself rather than copy and paste in every single element of the example, because you might not learn as much. It's like better to be copying elements and building your own code rather than trying to copy because it might not work. So we have done this. Let me just see how our AKS cluster looks like as well, because we have our main, we have our identity, we have our log analytics. Now in our cluster name, we should have a look, and there is something. We keep going. We're still on the cluster, I believe. Let's have a look. I'm just seeing. This is a AKS cluster name, resource group, cluster, log analytics, description. Yeah, okay. And then what I'm finding weird is that it's not really referencing the VNet. I'm trying to see where they actually reference the VNet here.
Oh,
Because,
look for the name, right? It's going to be referring to test.
yeah, we're looking for test, right? So let's have a look to see if we can find
Oh yeah,
test.
test.id. Oh gosh, yeah.
That's your
That's assigned
identity
identity.
IDs. But where's your virtual network?
Um,
It doesn't seem like we have it, right?
Show me
But
that definition again. Show me the code that you copied. It was just the name you gave it. Actually, let's look for the type. Let's look for the that Terraform type that it is.
well, we
That looks
create
helpful.
VNet and the subnet that I
Yeah.
get, right? But where's the actual? This is the surprising thing. This is where examples sometimes don't just add up. So
Yeah.
let's have a look at another example, and just have a look to see if there is a. Yeah, see, here we go. We got the VNet subnet ID here for the AKS,
Okay.
while it was missing in the other one. So sometimes these examples are just missing certain things that you would expect them to be a little bit better organized and better managed, because honestly I just don't see why someone in an example would declare a subnet but then not use it. It's a bit of a strange decision for me, but okay.
So let's look for the uh, so Azure RM underscore. There's your subnet test ID,
Yeah.
right?
So what we're gonna do is we're gonna use the subnet test ID. I mean, one of the things that we can also look at is just we can look at building out. So even before this, yeah, you can also look at your Terraform. So if I just out tab here, and then I look for AKS cluster Terraform, we can look at the Azure Kubernetes cluster, okay? And within it, we should be able to see a couple of things. So there'll be name, location, resource group name, fine. DNS prefix, ACI connector. So we do need an API server access profile. So this is one of the things that I don't expect the verified modules to maybe have. Well, if they do have, they definitely don't have it as an example. So let's just have a look at that. Equals. sorry, and the API server access profile. So we got the VNet. We will have this as a block. I'm just gonna comment this code out, but it'll just be code. What I'll do is here, and I'll just be like, and I'll just write code to put in later. So if I just do I'm on a Mac. I usually work professionally on a Mac, so I'm trying to remember the actual command line. Shift
KC
with this.
No,
Shift
KC.
with this.
There you go. Nice.
Yeah. So if you use Shift Out or Command Shift, I think it might be the same actually. Shift Out or Command Shift, and then what you can do is you can basically drag your cursor. So if you hold the button, you can drag the cursor, and then you can do like C or X or whatever. So you can like so in this way I did.
That's cool.
To basically meet it. Tips and tricks, right? So we will have the API server access profile. Let's see what else do we need? What else do we need for our scope? So let's just have a look. I'm not bothered about this. Not bothered about this for now. Bothered about this. As you can see, there are a lot of options, and I don't really want to. Yeah, possibly. Let's. Yeah. This is something as well. It's a network profile, so we will. Then we would want to use a network profile.
Let's find that. How's that defined?
We will have a look. Let's just go through all of these and make sure to remind ourselves of exactly what we need. So, private cluster. So we need this. Okay. And slowly, we're gonna just build out the bits that we need. We're gonna need a private DNS zone. ID too. Where's Visual Studio Code? Blah, blah. There we go. And then let's see. And then yes, we would need this as well. This should be, when we're all set and done, this should be set to false. And then what else? So yeah, now they show the examples, but I'm still looking to have a look to see if there's also actually, I think we'll need this as well. So this will be false as well. And what other commands? Security, storage profile, tags, web app, subnet name, subnet ID. So we will need subnet name. That's of course required, as you can see. So that's what we need to. That might come from the subnet ID one, but I need to have a look at the verified modules as well. Remember, these are the features which are like the core Terraform APIs that you're going to be using. But like the verified module have been built to incorporate some of these features. Maybe it hasn't got all the features. We'll have a look. Because again, what we're going to be deploying is a preview feature, not an actual there. So we're going to need this as well. And then, and then and we're going to need this. So, Dave, are you outside today?
Oh, you can. How's it? You hear there's an airplane above me.
Yeah. Was that the airplane?
Yeah, there's an airplane right there. Yeah, I'm outside today.
That's cool. It's good. Is it warm out there?
Right now it's let me see, what would it be in Celsius right now? It's in 79 Fahrenheit, and it's a really beautiful day. And we've had like a really mild. Oh, so it'd be like it's like 26 degrees. So it's been really mild. Winter months have been nice and cool. So Florida, man, this is like the perfect weather to be outside.
Nice. Yeah, I think that's mainly all we need. Let me see. The VNet subnet ID. Yeah, so this is another thing because basically this is the idea of a subnet where the Kubernetes node pool should exist. Now, what we're not doing is we're not really configuring the node pool. I mean, yes, we can, but that is another video. We might add it in. I just mainly want to get the API working, but then as we go on, we might need to add that as well. So max count, min count, node count, that's fine. As you can see, there are a lot of options, and it's going to take us forever to go through every single one of them. This is why I just want to focus on a private AKS section. Just checking to see what else we possibly could have. Not maintenance, not allowed, not allowed. I think let's get into the default standard DNS service IP. We might utilize this because, we can always copy this and copy the description as well. So we know exactly what we're talking about here. And yeah, we're just going through still trying to figure out exactly what no plugin mode, possibly this one. There's the ones that we're mainly concerned with are certain ones. So the ones that we're mainly concerned with are subnet name, VNet integration, subnet ID. No, actually, we just need subnet name and virtual network as well. So where it holds. Let's see. Still going through. Nothing else for me to see right now. Have you ever worked with AKS before? Oh, Dave, sorry, you're muted.
Oh, I just protected myself against the background noise. Usually just the command line tool to deploy it, or just PowerShell. And I'll cover AKS in some of the Azure basics classes, like 104. It's in Azure Security, the AZ500. But they'll have a couple of lines to spin it up using the command line tools usually, and so without any customizing, much configuration, just enough to get a cluster started, and then feeding it a Helm chart to spin up a basic application.
Okay. Yeah. That we could possibly do as well, but yeah, we will it's interesting that it's part of the exams now, because I remember when I did AZ104, well, I think it was AZ103 at the time. They didn't have any like Kubernetes service or anything. It was mostly just about virtual machines. And it's interesting the fact that they chose to put Kubernetes in like into like AZ104 as part of the administrator. To be honest, it's such a big subject nowadays. I'm not sure if there is an actual exam for it, is there?
Yeah. No, there's not really an exam for it. Yeah, there ought to be something for cloud native or container based development. I see space for that. probably I know that Kubernetes has their own certification.
Yeah, there's certification by Linux Foundation, which covers GCP, AWS, and Azure. So it's like it's definitely it's set, or is it C? I'm trying to remember what it's actually called, but CCSK or
CNCF.
C. It's by Cloud Foundation. It's or is it C? Certified Kubernetes Administrator, CKA, that's it, CKA. So there's a certified Kubernetes administrator. Then there's also a certified Kubernetes developer, and there's also a certified Kubernetes security as well.
Oh wow!
Yeah, so there's three different exams that you can essentially do that. They are tough exams, I hear. So I probably should do this at one point to make sure that it's actually there. So yeah,
Yeah, that's probably a pretty good. If you know that stuff inside and out, though, it's going to be a pretty good. Uh, what's the word? It's a good skill set. It's a good knowledge to have.
yeah. So okay, so we've looked through all the attributes. I think this is all that is needed for our basically test. So what we're going to be doing is we need to do a VNet subnet ID. So what we're doing is we're creating this, and we can actually reference this virtual network and the subnet ID over here. So as we can see, we've got these subnets linking up to our virtual network, right? Because basically what we do is we go Azure, our virtual network name will be Azure Virtual Network, then .test, right? And then it'll be .name. So what name you have. So 1, 2, 3. Then you can also shorten it to be just test.name, but prefer to like maybe write it with the actual you know
Okay.
so it concatenates. So essentially what we need to do, because we're going to be publishing, and the problem is this is not using a, well, it possibly could do because it's doing a random, so it could be a different subnet that's called.
So you've already called the prefix. You're defining that a little higher up. So maybe you want to define some other variables to use here.
Yeah.
Where's your? Is it near the top of the screen for the prefix? Yeah. I remember that. Okay.
Yeah, we did 1, 2, 3, 4. So in terms of subnet ID, the one that we want. So if we look at a couple of subnet IDs, right? So we have the VNet integration enabled and the VNet subnet ID. Now the VNet subnet ID is the one that we want to use for our VNet integration, which is the API one. So what we should do is we should call it Azure subnet dot API. Yep. Dot, and then the subnet ID would be the ID. Okay. So that's how we would reference that subnet to say, hey, but so there are two things here which I think I should explain. So if we go back into our code and we look at subnet underscore ID, okay, so this is interesting because they have a subnet ID, and this is the ID of the subnet where the API server endpoint is. Right. Yes, because this has a block. So let's just remember this. So in order to build this, to make sure that when I enable private AKS, that it will pop my API into the VNet, because what we're doing here is we're going to be using the /28, right? So in order to make sure that we pop that in there, we would need to use subnet ID. So let's, instead of using this, we'll have to use this, but we can't just use subnet ID. We have to do a block. So we have to use API server access profile underscore server profile. And there will be a block. And within this, and this is where I'm not sure if the module actually has the API server access profile. So let's have a look. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a search, and I'm going to have a look for anything called API server underscore access underscore profile. So we have a look at this AKS module, and we see that there's a dynamic, and it's saying for each API server access profile. So we are looking to employ and use this code. How is that code going to be used in dynamic? Let me just have a look to see what exactly we're talking about. So dynamic. If I just view this,
I think it's going to create an entry for each.
yeah, I'm trying to find exactly where it's like. So this is, but this might be from a main. So, yeah. So in here, we see that we've got an API server access profile. For each var.api, I think we'll need nows and counts. Let's have a look. This is what I'm talking about, like trying to decipher certain code, you know, especially when it's missing. So if I have a look at the main again, sorry, the main.tf over here, and let's have a look for something which it's going to be dynamic, but it's going to be used in somewhere else. So like say for example Linux OS config. Hopefully that's used in other places as well. Because if I look at the API server access profile, it's a block, but for some reason it's not putting that forward. So what we will do is we'll just paste this block, and then we'll have a look at, there's an extra node pool, yep, AKS module. I'm just going to see if there's an example, which is this one. So I can see that in here we have agent Linux own sconfig. So they use brackets essentially because they've done dynamics to define that. So let's see if we can get away with the same thing over here using. Let me go and have a look one more time on the search.
It's dynamic, so I think it's going to generate one. The term dynamic means it's going to generate a record for every subnet you have or every IP range that's allowed.
Well, let's just have a look. So if I copy this code, because this is what's going to happen in terms of the module, right? So we can see that here's a module, and this is an example that we're viewing right now, aren't we? For an ingress gateway, but there's also for startup that you see this code is employed. and that's dynamic as well. So let's just have a look at the main. And we'll have a look. So we can see that agent pools, it's a list of objects, but I'm wondering, do they have that as a variable? So if I look for autumn API underscore server underscore access profile.
Okay, it looks like I got about another 20 minutes.
Okay, that sounds good. Yeah, we can do that. Yeah, that's fine. Right. So
This one, the one you're looking at said dynamic. Like this one says variable, right? So that uh, the entry for the for each was a dynamic type.
yeah, but so was the entry for the Linux.
Uh
So
huh.
if we have a look for the agents for Linux OS config, right? And then we go and explore this module some more, we can see that if I look for agents underscore pool, you can see that it's got for each var OS configs, and then it has a content. So what we need to do is probably the same thing. So if we had a look at the server access profile for each, we would need to do. Oh, I'm not sure I agree with the way they done it, to be honest with you here,
Mm-hmm.
because they're expecting the API server authorized IP ranges to dictate exactly what it would be. Like it's basically saying that, hey, this is so for each API server equals null, then it will basically pipe it into an API server VNet ID, and then it will have an API server access profile. But
Right.
and then it will have content.
So
But
it looks like it's a or statement. So if the IP address range is not null and the subnet ID is not null, then is it or yeah, and then it's going to display API server access profile. Um, but then the empty brackets.
yeah, this is the thing. I think we will have to just do this API server subnet ID. So if we take this content and then we go back to the main over here, and then because we're basically building that, so let's see if this will like it over here. Would that like it or no? So they're not expected here. Okay. What about the API server access profile? What do we have for that? So if that's not expected here, fine. What about API server authorized IP ranges? And that we put as. So they're not allowing the use of a block. They've blocked it up already, I think. So it's just a matter of using this as your variables.
Hmm.
So in that way, I'm gonna put API server. So I think they've done the logic for you actually over there. So that's a good thing. And then we're gonna do in terms of the API server VNet, we would need to set this. So we would need to set Azure subnet dot API dot ID, and that should get us the subnet ID that we're creating for the virtual network. So, in regards to that, I'm just gonna get rid of this. Get rid of this. Although I would have liked the ability to, have it like this, but then again, we'll see. So maybe they've updated the code since I took it last time. So let's I'll have a look at that. But regarding the content, so we have a subnet ID, but that's about it. The problem is the API server access profile also contains a few other elements. It contains stuff such as, because if I look for private DNS zone, DNS, right, so they've coded it in here. So the private DNS zone ID should be just a variable. So again, we can probably just take that variable and then put that into the main. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be adding this private DNS zone ID, and then that will be equals var. Obviously, we need to now define it. We need to define the variable what it would be. So in our configuration, we probably could either set it or have I think we could probably set it. Would we set it? No, we would need to create a new resource as well, I think. So
there's local variables and there's just var variables, right? There's different types of variables there.
Yeah. So well, are you getting confused between this or?
Yes, we had at least one that was locals dot and then define the variable, and you have var dot, right? So local is just to the is
So this left bit is gonna be, because we're defining a module, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're defining an AKS module. We're looking at the source over here, which is going to be our AKS module, right? Because we're looking at our AKS module over here, that means we are grabbing any variables that have been set up in, let me just close all of these folders, but all of the variables that have been set up in the AKS module, okay? So like you would see over here. So you see how the API server subnet ID variable and the attached, or so anything I can just place in my code over here. I can place the variable over here because that is coming from my AKS module. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so I can see that the first one is defined, the var Azure RM subnet API ID. So it found that one, and the second one's not defined, so it's giving you the red. It's giving you the red underline there.
Yeah, it's because I set it over here, right? I set the. I've got the actual reference to it over here. But what I haven't done yet is create the resource for the private DNS zone ID, right? So what I need to do is I need to create something like that. So if I looked for private DNS zone ID, okay, and then I did, so I called it DNS zone. Let's just call it DNS zone. And then I need to now find out from the Terraform website, exactly like we look for the AKS cluster. If I look for the private underscore DNS zone ID, and I click into that variable, it'll show me a usage. Do you see this?
Yeah.
So resource, Azure, and then it'll say, all I need to do is I need to create a name on where I want to put that resource group in. So in our case, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be looking into the private DNS zone, and we're going to be creating that, and then we will do a name. So let's call it um a, let's call it a private link. I'll just use the same kind of methodology, but
Yeah.
you can use, the thing is, what you can do is you can go A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, whatever it is, yeah. But you need that. You need it, Azure one, like AKS cluster won't recognize unless this is there populated. So right now I've done ECS2, but I gotta be careful because my location could be a little bit different, right? So I might need to, instead of using that, I might need to substitute location into this. Let me see. How is it? Trying to remember the brackets I need to do. Dollar that and then that. So in this way, what I'm doing is I'm doing ABCDFG dot private link dot the location I'm setting as the region, whatever it may be, because I have location defined as part of my resource group, which
Oh,
is south.
yeah.
So I have that defined, and then the resource group name. Again, I need to define my resource group name, the thing that we've been using. So if I look at, and so it says example, right? But we're gonna get rid of example because that's what we're using. But what we're using is a cache resource, right? Because what we're basically doing is referencing this bit above here. So that makes, so in that way we know that because we're referencing that resource group name, therefore the location should be pulled. It might be that I might need to do more, but let's see. Let's have a look and see what happens with this. Now obviously I've got errors. I'm not sure exactly why I have errors, but we have errors. So there's a private DNS zone ID which hasn't been defined. It's there, but have we got a variable for it? Um, let's see what happens if we just get rid of var. Would it recognize it?
Oh, yeah, it's a circular reference, I think, there.
Yeah. No, what we haven't done is we have done var, right? Dot, but we haven't completed it. We've done private DNS zone ID, but what we need is DNS zone. Yeah. And then we need the name of the DNS zone. Right.
Yeah.
And that will give me all of the name for that DNS zone.
Nice. Okay.
As you can see, we're complete now. We don't have an error. There's no, main.tf has actually gone back and said, hey, that's okay. Now I'm not exactly sure where we're at the moment, so I'm just gonna do Terraform validate quickly. Ooh, what am I doing? I'm missing required provider.
Yeah.
Right. So what we need to do, because we're missing the private provider, we need to init. Now it might not init because I need to upgrade. So let me upgrade. Could not retrieve. Does not have a provider named registry. Should do. But let's have a look. Okay then. Why is it not private? So let me just check my providers. I've got my Azure RAM. It's obviously recognizing that it needs HashiCorp private. Provider registry. Registry does not have a module. So let's have a look to see
Hmm.
what this is, because this is a unique issue. Terraform. Let me just let me just make the screen a little bit bigger for you so you can see it. Providers. Right, so we can see providers required by configuration. So we will need Azure RAM, and then we'll need a HashiCorp private.
Okay.
Right, so let's have a look for this.
Uh, I should go private.
See what happened.
Oh, so it's where did it give you a line number because it's barking about the a different resource?
Possibly. Let's have a look. Doesn't actually say what um provider would be. So let's see if we can actually. If it's something like, I doubt it's this.
Yeah, something that's not going to work there.
Yeah, this is the thing. I think we need to slow down a little bit and just have a look to hash out exactly what does on what's required. Might be a type of resource. Again, because it's in preview, some of these features, I'm not sure if should be released because I've seen colleagues do this already, but you know, it's,
You sure the error message again?
so it's showing that.
Failed to query available provider packages. Um,
Sorry, let me just minimize it slightly. Failed. So, let me just put this. Yeah, failed to query all modules. So it's a matter of getting the right provider, but let's see if we can. Let's try doing this again. Terraform validate.
there we go. 945. That's the one you just changed the name of. Hmm.
Let's have a look.
So that's the
So it
variable
says
you renamed.
a managed resource has not been declared in. That's line 17. So we can mute that for now because we muted that private DNS zone ID. Interesting. Okay. Are you saying to us that private DNS zone ID is not yet available? It should be.
You're going to have to define those maybe like a set of variables that you
Yeah.
want to use, like on the top. Like we decided you define the prefix and the cluster name. Maybe you're going to find it in there.
Right. Let's
Is that
see.
your local variables?
Sorry. Go ahead, Dave. Which ones
That
were that?
Are your local variables, are those like where you define the prefix near the top? Is that local? Those are your local variables, right? In the top of that same file.
Which one?
Yeah.
So
there you're defining like on line 13, 14. You're reusing those elsewhere. Those are local variables, right?
in a way, yeah, to this. Yeah.
So maybe we have to define the name of the subnets and stuff there.
Yeah, we possibly can. So if we did has not oh yeah, because a random ID prefix has not been declared. So I get what they're doing over here, but we could probably just keep it simple for now and then we'll complicate it later, yeah. So let's do this subnet as API and then we'll call it subnet. Okay, so we'll do that. And then I think it's also is it complaining about anything else? I'm not sure. Let's just try doing a Terraform validate again. So again, it's complaining about the virtual network now. So in
is the prefix
is it 51 or is it 45? Oh, 45. Oh, I see over here. So this is what to call a virtual network. So if we called it, I don't know, it's one of those things that you test VNet. I hate naming. It's one of my pet peeves. But yeah, test VN. Then we could call it under hours, brand or whatever it is. I'll call it Andre and Dave. Why not? Be a bit more. Why not? It doesn't. Right. So if we did a Terraform. So if I look at the Azure, right, because we're using because again we copied the text, right? And we haven't set the locals, but in a sense, what we need to do is we need to do the.
You have to change it on line 46 and 52, I guess.
Azure. Azure. I'm done. Right. I think we'll call it dot name. Right. Okay. Cool. And
36.
then 36 as well. Right. And 60 as well. Yeah, we haven't defined locals. We should really do that, but it's fine. I just want to quickly do this, and then we can change all the bits later. 46, and then also we will again have a because if you look at the examples, just as a quick reference again, if I look at my locals, I would have a resource group, and then I would have a name, resource group, and what it would be, blah blah blah. But we'll smarten this up later. It's not going to be something which is too difficult. It's just going to be, we're just going to have to rejig it a little bit to make it a bit more human readable. So what we will be going through now is we also need to set the location, right? So what we need to do, instead of saying name, we will need to set the location. And that will be the UK South, right?
Okay.
What else is there? So subnet resource group name, that's fine. Don't really want to do this for now. Just gonna get rid of this. I don't want to deploy stuff which isn't really needed at the moment. So we'll have a look there. So now
51.
51, which is again a subnet. So we'll call this our pod. So just as a right. Okay, cool. So we validated, right? So we can see that's all validated. So if we go Terraform plan, let's see what happens. And then we'll probably call, if this works, we'll call this the last section of the day. But yeah.
That's good.
So there will be a certain thing where it's just gonna take off upgrade settings, max search. That's fine. We'll deal with this stuff later. It's not that of a big deal. It could be a big deal if you're in production, but it is not a big deal because we're just testing out. Yeah. Right. So we will see that we have a virtual network that will be created. A subnet.test will be created, and a subnet.api will be created. So what we're going to be doing is let's go and run apply. We didn't get too far in terms of making the cluster private, but I want to do that eventually, and we'll probably do that as part of our next session. But yeah.
It's good progress.
Yeah. Yes, we do. So remember, if you use just supply, you would need to test, or you could do -- auto approve, whichever one is easier for you. So we will go through. Oh, something happened here. Yes, and this is a very important point because my subscription. You remember when I said to you before that my subscription for the VNet integration is a private feature, right? I haven't ever enabled it for my subscription. So I would need to run this code on my terminal, and that should enable my, which it should be. So is it, where am I actually? Let me just see my AZ account show, because obviously it's not deploying to the correct. Yeah, Visual Studio Code. It is registered. So, okay.
The subnet should be empty because the private integration is not enabled.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's interesting. So because if you're enabling that feature, and then you have to define all the subnet parameters. So you're defining the subnet parameters, but you haven't enabled the feature.
No, I have enabled the feature, so this is something that I really need to check. Maybe it's being caused by this error.
Oh, it should be empty.
Yeah, it's apparently it's already over exists.
Oh.
What I would suggest that we do, in fact, is run a Terraform destroy. And
wait, yeah, I can see the problem now because I can see the subnet API. It overlaps with the subnet test.
What do you mean? Oh yeah. What do you mean? 1052.
So the /20, so the /28 and the /24, they overlap each other.
Right.
So
yes. We can do like one, for example, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, that is a problem. Right. Okay. Cool. Let's try. We'll try Terraform apply one more time, and I realize you have to go, so we will do this, and then we'll probably.
Yeah. It's good to get to work first. It's fun to. Yeah. There we go.
Well, no. Yeah, we need to. Yes. Yeah, so now we fix the error, but it's saying that should be empty because API server, and we have enabled it. So I need to, oh, that's right. That's one more thing that we didn't do. We have done this. We've enabled the subnet, but we didn't do, if I look for in here, VNet underscore, oh, sorry, not in startup. We're looking at the examples. We're looking at the module. The thing that we haven't done is, I look for integration. And this is where they haven't really defined VNet integration. So that's really interesting. So this module that we have has not enabled VNet integration. So I think that's what we will look into next week, about modifying this module to actually have the VNet integration. Because, as we said, it is a private feature. And because these verified modules may not have private features, that's why it doesn't, even though on a Terraform site, it does have it, because this, you see this VNet integration enabled? We need that as true. So I'm not sure if the module will allow that. I'll try one last thing. If it doesn't work, then we'll go. Equals true. Let's try this. No, it won't, because it's looking for a module. And we'll need to define that. And we'll do that next episode.
All right.
Sounds good.
That's progress.
Yeah, thanks all for joining us. It's been real fun. And yeah, I will definitely, I'm looking forward to creating more on the next one. Take care.
Awesome. See you later, Andre.